Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to look at a new video AI upscaler from Nero. I've done quite a few on different ones in the past, and Nero then contacted me and said, how do you fancy looking at ours? I should say at the outset, I'm a big user of Topaz, and I still think that does the best quality overall, but that's not what Nero are going for here. And Nero have gone for good quality, easy to use, and not too expensive. Topaz is more expensive and you need more fiddling. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through on how I use Nero and show you some of the results I've had. You might be familiar with Nero. When I used to have a company making lots of computers, we would always stick a version of Nero Burning ROM to write DVDs and Blu-rays. It's actually the same company. Of course, less people are writing DVDs and Blu-rays these days, so they've branched out into other things, and one of them is this. Now, when you installed it, you'll end up with an icon on the desktop for Nero AI Upscaler and a Nero Start icon on a couple of others. Nero Start takes you to a list of lots and lots and lots of different programs. Obviously, you have to pay for some of these. Now, I haven't tried any of these. I've literally just been using the Upscaler. I can launch the Upscaler from here, or I can just go straight to the desktop icon. So I'm going to do that. Yep, it presents you with a pretty simple interface. Obviously, up here is bringing stuff in, and if you buy one of their little gizmos, you can record VHS onto it. Haven't tried that. I've literally just brought in some clips and done stuff with that. Now I'm going to start off with a couple of clips that I've used before in other videos, because I thought it was a good comparison since I've tried these to death with other programs. So this is High 8 video. It's got some diagonals in it, it's got faces in it, it's got plants in it. So it's a nice little mix of different kinds of things. Typically, things like diagonals don't come out too well when they get upscaled. Now, once you've loaded up, you've got this interface here, obviously showing you the before and an upscaled or an after. Of course, I haven't actually chosen anything yet. Down here, you get a timeline. So if you want to, you can choose to do a bit of it by just dragging through, marking a start point, and then marking an end point. And then here just changes how you preview it. Main thing is you come over to here and you choose the model that you want to do. So I can come in here and from the AI model, there's 5 different variations here. And I'll show you some examples of these clips upscaled using all of them. I think realistic is my favorite. Versatile certainly is the longest, but I think realistic does a slightly better job overall. Fast, I didn't think was that much better than the original, but I thought realistic was pretty good. Face enhancement does a pretty good job on faces as well. But I'll show you some examples of a couple of clips done with all these different variations. First thing I noticed actually loading up this is there are quite a few types of files that it doesn't load up. So it doesn't load up lots of different MOV files, for example. A lot of my stuff, when I've deinterlaced it, I have made a ProRes MOV file and they won't load up into this. But what will load up is MP4 files and also AVI files. Now my original AVI files, they are not deinterlaced. So I wanted to try those as well, to see how well that worked. But I'm going to start off with a totally deinterlaced one. A lot of AI upscaling programs aren't that very good at handling interlaced video, so I wanted to start off with something that wasn't interlaced and see how well that did it. And literally you just come in here, you choose your model, you choose how big you want it to be. There isn't a custom option here. If I want to go out to HD, I would just choose that. This thing is also the same height as high definition, but a bit thinner. And in fact, if you take a standard definition 4:3 image and you upscale it, it comes out to 1440 by 1080. So it's 1440 wide by 1080. If I do that, it's just going to stick black borders down the side. I'd probably do that if I'm then going to take it to an editing program. If what I wanted to do is just take this and use it, like I'm taking a bit of a family video, I just want to show it to other people, I'd probably go straight for high definition. Because sometimes some programs have had a problem seeing that and knowing what to do with it. Sometimes they just automatically stretch it to be high def. So if I'm just going to literally produce something at the end I'm going to give to somebody else, I'd go for that. If I'm going to edit, I'd probably not bother to suck in the back borders and go for that one. So I'm going to go straight for high def. On the frame rate, this does do frame interpolation, so I can make it be 120 frames per second if I want to. I'm not going to, because of course it's 50 already, so I don't need to bother. When I first started doing digital images, I had cameras that would do videos, but they'd always be a bit small, a bit pixelated, and 15 frames a second. So if I wanted to take something that's say 15 frames a second and whack it up to 25, I could do this, and then it would interpolate the frames for me. Again, I'm not doing that, I'm just upscaling it. So essentially what you do is you choose your size, you choose your model, you can have a quick preview. Like it says here, it's optimized for NVIDIA cards, which pretty much all upscaling programs are. The better the NVIDIA card, the faster it is. I'm using this in a system with a 3060 graphics card. I haven't tried it on lower spec graphics cards, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be like all the other upscaling programs, it will just go a lot slower. I'm going to put it to 100% because everything always looks very good when it's shrunk down. You really need to see it properly at the right size. And now I can just do a quick compare between what it looks like upscaled and the original. So there you can see, I mean, this is typical Hi8 stuff. It's a little bit fuzzy. It's actually brought in quite a bit of definition to their faces and so on. I think that's a pretty good upscale. I mean, this is Hi8 originals. They're never going to look like high definition. Like I said, I can get a better result if I do a lot more fiddling and if I pay more money and use Topaz. But the whole point of this is it's simple and does a pretty good job. I've used quite a few different upscaling programs, and like I said, I settled on Topaz as the best quality. Most of the others, I have found sort of weird things happening in different bits of the image. Yeah, they do a good job in some bits and mess up other bits. This seems to do a good job overall. If you want to see what one of the other models looks like, let's go to face enhancement. I can preview it. If I pop up with the task manager, you can see here that it's hammering the NVIDIA graphics card as you would expect. There we are, that 3-second preview with face enhancement on. I think that's brought the faces out a bit better. It's brought in some of the details. Has it brought in too many details? Has it sort of created too many things there and made it a bit blobby and was realistic better? Of course, that's a matter of opinion, but again, I'll show you a comparison of them in a minute. And apart from that, you just click the Upscale Now button and it exports. On the export option, so if I click on this little button here, you can see you've got what kind of file you're going to make. It is restricted on the types of files. It's basically going to make an MP4 file out of H.264 or H.265. H.265 obviously can do a good job and get it into a smaller space. They're both quite compressed. Now, again, if I'm going off to an editing program, I would like to stick it into a format which is not nearly as compressed, like ProRes or something like that. It doesn't do that. It is really aiming for you to take a simple video, upscale it, and then just give it to people. You can change the bit rate between low, medium, and high. So on principle, I generally go for high because I'm probably going to edit it later on. And then do you use the software, the NVIDIA, or the Intel graphics card that I happen to have in here? So you've got these 3 different encoders. Generally, I just use the NVIDIA because I've got one and it's pretty good at doing that kind of thing. Frankly, what I've been doing is just sticking it on high, and then you click upscale and it gets off and does it. Now I'm going to put this back to realistic. Click Upscale Now, and there we are. It's now off and doing the upscaling. Up it's popped up. It's gone in a particular folder. Now the folder it went into is this one here. It normally defaults to going on the C drive, so I just choose to stick it somewhere else. I can pop back to that home page, the import and the queue page, just by clicking on the button up here. I can click the folder button to bring up the folder and have a look at the clip that it's just done. Or I can click on this to get back into it and do a different variation. So suppose I've done realistic, I'd like to do a face enhancement and see how it is. I can click on that, click upscale and let it get on with it. And the other thing that you can do here is once it's finished, you can click that little rubbish bin there, which will delete it from the list of jobs. If you shut down the program, it will also get rid of all the jobs. You can stack up more videos here if you want to. So suppose I want to bring in another one. Let's go here and bring in this other clip, which is the other one that I generally fiddle with. I like this one because it's got a lot of diagonals on it, and diagonals are generally hard to upscale. Again, I can choose whatever model I want here, choose the size and so on. I can't do a preview because, if I click on that, it'll say, sorry, I'm exporting something. So you'll have to wait. But what I can do is just put that in there, say upscale now, and it pops it into the queue, and it'll do it after this one. So I can stack up lots of videos and let it get on with it. I can pause the queue, and I was hoping that if I paused the queue, went, imported another video, gave it some settings, I could preview it, but I can't. No, I've basically got to wait for all these queued up things to finish before I can do another preview. But what I can do is I can just use the same settings on lots of clips. So having decided I like the realistic model, for example, I can just come in here and grab another clip and make it realistic and say upscale now, and it will go into the queue. And then you just start the queue and let it get on with it. I'm going to take this one off for the moment. And I'll also take that one off. There's also this thing down here, which is quite nice. If you've got a queue of stuff, you might leave it going overnight. So you can just pop on this and then choose what to happen when you've actually finished. Now, I don't want it to shut down the computer because I'm in the middle of filming this stuff. But if I did that, left a queue in there going and went off to bed, it will shut down the computer when it's finished, which is nice. I don't like leaving computers on. They use up power, and we're supposed to be being economical with power for money and environmental reasons these days. So it's nice that you can stack up a queue and tell it to shut down the computer once it's finished. But it really is kind of as simple as that. Bring in a video, choose some settings, export, job done. Now, like I mentioned, those videos that I was using there, they are progressive in the first place. I wonder what would happen if I poured in an interlaced video. So let me bring in the same clip, this one here, but it's an original DV AVI file. Now again, I like this one here because these diagonals can look very jaggy if they're not done properly. You know, this is what standard deinterlacing looks like in, say, Edius, is lots and lots of jaggies. So what's that going to look like if I shove it through Nero? So again, choose the model, choose the setting, click on preview. And there you can see, yeah, it's coped actually. It's coped with the deinterlacing. It's still slightly jaggy down there. And I think that the version that I deinterlaced first, and I did deinterlacing it using QTMGC, which is my favorite deinterlacer. I think that version does a slightly better job. It doesn't look quite as jaggy here. But actually, it's not doing a bad job of deinterlacing this stuff using the realistic model. I did try using some of the others, like Versatile. Versatile is something which I find takes quite a bit longer than some of the other models. And you can see that, not doing such a good job, I don't think, on the deinterlacing as realistic. But I thought the realistic one actually did a pretty good job at handling interlaced video like this. And this is a standard problem. When you bring stuff into an upscaling program, how does it deal with interlaced stuff? Now, AVC, which is another one I did a video on, I really like AVC for its colorization. I think it's the best one at colorizing black and white footage that I've used. But AVC has a deinterlacing tick box, which would have sorted this out for you. Things like HitPaw didn't deal with it very much at all. Topaz does. Topaz, some models can deinterlace stuff pretty well. Although again, with Topaz, I actually find it's better to deinterlace it first anyway, and I get better results. But you can just pop DV in there, and I think if you use the realistic version, you'll be okay with the kind of results that you're getting. You'll notice, by the way, here it goes to 25 frames a second, because DV really is 25 frames a second. It's just split up into two fields. So you get 50 half fields a second or 25 full frames a second. When I deinterlace it, I prefer it to go to 50p using QTMGC, because I reckon that does a good job. And again, I've done videos about that, so you can look at those on my channel. But it was 25 frames a second in the first place. So if I was using Nero, I wouldn't bother. I'd just go and stick it at the original 25. And now let's have a look at the results. So what I've got here is I've got the original clip, which was deinterlaced in QTMGC, and then various variations on top of it. It's all in DaVinci Resolve, which you'll probably be familiar with. Obviously, this one has to be scaled by DaVinci Resolve because it's standard definition. It's using Lanczos, one of the best scalings that Resolve can actually do. So first of all, let's look here at the very first one, which is the fast variation. Obviously, it's a bit small here, so I could just pop it up full screen and start it playing. Now, with the fast one, to be honest, quite difficult to see much difference between the two, between my QTMGC one and the one that's been done by Nero. Those actually look pretty similar. On the other hand, if instead of using the one that I deinterlaced with QTMGC, I used an AVI file and I let Resolve deinterlace it, actually, the Nero one does look better. The Resolve deinterlace one, and Resolve does pretty good deinterlacing, but the Resolve deinterlace one is a lot fuzzier. This is using the free deinterlacing that you get with Resolve. So this is in the free version and the full version. I could turn up the quality in that, and inside of Resolve put it onto the neural engine, which is their best one. Even then, it's come out a bit sharper with the Resolve deinterlacing, but there's a lot of fizz and a lot of noise around all these different things. There's a lot of noise there in his coat, which is cleaned up nicely on the Nero one. And of course, I am using the fast one, which, okay, it's fast, but I wouldn't use that personally. I'd use some of the others because they give much better results, which is what I'm going to show you in a sec. So yeah, just wanted to quickly show you that. So fast, probably about the same as QTMGC. Let's have a look at the animation version. Yeah, now that's got a little bit sharper. It's still tidier, there's still less fuzz going on, but you've got much more definition, say, around the very easy bits around here, and a bit more definition on his face. Pop it up to the Versatile one. And again, you've got something which is a little bit sharper, a little bit cleaner, there's less noise on it. Next, we have the realistic version. And I'm hard pressed to decide whether I prefer the realistic one to the Versatile one. It's tried a bit harder in the plants around here to get some detail in. But yeah, it's a bit sharper and nicer than this one. And finally the face enhance one. So face enhance there has actually sharpened up this guy's face quite a bit sharper. Obviously none of them making them look like my high 8 stuff is high definition, but then nothing really does that. I mean, I said, Topaz with a bit of fiddling does a better job than this, but it still doesn't make my high 8 original look like high definition. And the final thing that I have got down here is I did do a variation from the original DV footage. So all of these ones here were done from my deinterlaced thing. If I just had the AVI file and I wanted to put it in there, this is the variation where Nero actually deinterlaced it for me. So let's just pop that up full screen. Now you can see here what I do get when I'm deinterlacing is particularly problems on diagonals like these guys' swords. And it's done a pretty good job of making that nice and sharp. Not a bad job on the detail. It's a little bit fizzier than the one that came from QTMGC, but not a bad job at all. And the final thing I did was to do a variation, again from the interlace AVI file, but this time using the versatile option. Again, I think the realistic one there comes out a little bit sharper. But still, that did a fairly good job of deinterlacing it as well. We look at the same stuff for the other clip. So this is the one where we have this huge diagonal down here, which can cause problems. Now my first one here that I got on the resolve side, this is resolved doing the deinterlacing of my AVI file. And you see the sort of stuff that can happen and make it look really, really naff. So instead, let's put in the one that I deinterlaced in QTMGC. You can see I've got better diagonals there. And this is QTMGC versus the faster version. Again, pretty similar, to be perfectly honest. But then pump it up to the animation version. You can see the animation version is already getting a bit sharper. The realistic version, which I think does a better job than animation. Again, you'll notice looking at his face there, I mean, again, there's not a lot of detail in that face because it's very overexposed, but there's still more nonsense going on around his face there than there is in this one. Then the versatile version and the face enhanced version. Face enhance, does a better job on the face, and it also adds quite a bit more sharpness. And then finally, I've got a variation which is realistic from the original DV. So this is Nero doing the deinterlacing and upscaling rather than using something I deinterlaced somewhere else. My QTMGC that I'm using to deinterlace is free. It's just an extra step you'd have to do. Again, this one, not quite as sharp as, say, the face enhanced version, but it is doing better around the face. Look at the lips, if you can see it right there. On this version, which is from the original, there's just more lines. It's smoother and nicer. Let's just pop it up full screen so you can have a proper look at it. Although on the diagonals there, it's not doing as good a job as it does with QTMGC. But overall, better picture, didn't take too much effort. Let's have a look at others. I thought, well, I have actually got here some video which I recorded on VHS many, many years ago off TV. Because let's bring in a bit of Barry Norman. Who doesn't like a bit of Barry Norman? Some of you might not even know who Barry Norman is. This is a film program from 1980, which is reviewing films. And on this particular footage, it's typical VHS footage. There's a bit of nonsense down here. Occasionally it jumps up and down, and it's rather fuzzy. This is just stuff that I've digitized and saved. It's interlaced. And I wonder what it would do with that. So I pop that in there. Again, run a bit of realistic on that. And again, if I just zoom in a bit, it does a good job of cleaning it up. It's sharpened out these lines here quite a bit more than it does his face. But again, it has improved it. If I go for a bit of face enhancement, you can see there it has actually brought out quite a lot of details on his face, although other bits have gone a bit blobbier. But it's a definite improvement on what was there in the first place. And yes, just to do a small section of this, I'd mark an in point, mark an out point, and then just do that little bit in the middle. Again, this is coming from an interlaced original. That's what the original looks like. There's the old versatile model. Now, the little bit of jumping that I'm getting with the video, which comes out of the VHS in the first place, that's not going away. But again, it has brought a bit more definition into his face. Again, I think I still prefer the realistic version of this. But just looking at that, it's obviously straightened out the line here. It's given more definition onto his face. If you go to their website, it is $49.95, which is a yearly subscription. If you want a permanent license, it's £129, which, comparing to Topaz is $299 for a permanent license. I mean, that's going to be about 250, 260 quid. Obviously, you're looking at something which is considerably cheaper here. For what their intended aim is a thing that does a pretty good job and isn't too expensive. I think it does exactly what it says on the tin. You do get updates for the year, of course, and an update that happened only a couple of days ago is this one, where you can make some adjustments to the video as well. So I could add a little bit more sharpness to it, and I could change the contrast a bit, up the saturation if I wanted to, and so on. But that is like putting it on later on in your editing program. So you notice the sharpness there is doing something. The sharpness is just adding a little bit there, but not very much. You're already using AI to upscale it, so you don't want to add too much sharpness because it'll make it look really, really bad. So it's a nice little subtle sharpness there. And obviously I can up the brightness a bit and the contrast. A lot of my VHS recordings are a little bit dull, I think, so they could deal with that. This is the sort of thing I personally would do in my editing program later on. Part of the point of this is you don't have to do anything else. You can just pop it into here, get it to do everything, and then export a file. Let's just reset those. So if you want to know more, you can get a trial from the Nero website. Apart from just giving me a copy to play with, they aren't giving me any commission or anything else. Go to the Nero website, try it out, and if you like it, say you can get a year's worth for £50. Anyway, I hope you found that information useful. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of thing. And I'll see you next time.